Tonight, before you fall asleep, you'll probably pull a blanket over yourself without thinking. That ordinary habit is the solution to a survival problem that challenged humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. Most people assume the deadliest place during the Ice Age was the Arctic. Surprisingly, our story begins somewhere else. Nearly 900,000 years ago, on the eastern coast of what is now England, ancient footprints briefly emerged before the sea erased them forever. Recorded in 2013, they are among the oldest known human footprints ever found outside Africa. They belong to adults and children traveling together, proving that families had reached northern Europe far earlier than once believed. But reaching Britain was only the first challenge. As night fell, temperatures dropped quickly. Cold, damp winds swept inland. Dense forests were scarce, permanent shelters were absent, and current archaeological evidence offers no convincing proof that these early people could reliably control fire. Their protection was little more than animal hides wrapped around the body. The hides blocked some wind but couldn't seal in warmth. Every movement allowed precious body heat to escape. Without stitched clothing or dependable insulation, survival depended on whether the body could replace heat faster than it lost it. Every winter night became a constant drain on energy. These footprints are almost all that remain of those people. Their tracks vanished within weeks, and their population eventually disappeared from history, beginning a pattern that would repeat for hundreds of thousands of years. Human groups entered Britain. They struggled. Then they vanished. The obvious explanation is that they lacked better technology. But history tells a different story. Hundreds of thousands of years later, humans would possess advanced weapons, greater experience, and far better survival skills, yet they would still face the same enemy every night. The next discovery reveals why. If Britain's first settlers failed because they lacked better tools, improved technology should have changed everything. It didn't. Roughly 300,000 years after the Happisburgh footprints, humans living in what is now northern Germany left behind one of prehistoric Europe's greatest discoveries. At Schöningen, archaeologists uncovered remarkably preserved wooden spears. Carefully shaped with a forward-balanced design, they flew straighter, struck tip first, and resembled modern javelins. They were the product of planning, engineering, and generations of accumulated knowledge. Nearby lay the remains of dozens of butchered horses. Cut marks and broken bones showed these animals had been hunted, processed, and stripped for both meat and nutritious marrow. Schöningen overturned the old image of prehistoric humans as desperate scavengers. These people planned hunts, coordinated attacks, and mastered large-game hunting. For the first time in our story, food was no longer the greatest challenge. Successful hunts supplied meat, fat, and marrow in abundance. If survival depended only on finding food, these hunters should have flourished. But night didn't care how successful the hunt had been. A full stomach couldn't stop body heat from escaping. A pile of meat couldn't block the freezing wind. Even the finest spear couldn't keep someone warm while they slept. Hour after hour, the body continued burning energy simply to maintain its core temperature. Fire helped. Food helped. Neither solved the deeper problem. Every sunset restarted the same battle. Not against mammoths, not against horses, against the night itself. Schöningen forces us to reconsider one of our oldest assumptions. Perhaps humanity's greatest obstacle was never finding food. If expert hunters armed with sophisticated weapons still struggled after sunset, what happened to the human species built specifically for life in the cold? The answer begins with the Neanderthals. If any human species should have conquered the Ice Age, it was the Neanderthals. Modern archaeology paints them not as primitive survivors but as masters of cold environments. For hundreds of thousands of years, they endured conditions that would challenge even well-equipped people today. Their bodies were built for winter. Short, powerful frames reduced heat loss. Broad chests warmed freezing air. And strong muscles generated both heat and the strength needed to hunt Ice Age animals. But biology wasn't enough. Neanderthals controlled fire, processed animal hides, and crafted specialized tools to scrape, clean, and soften leather. Their survival depended on knowledge refined over countless generations. Yet one weakness remained. After sunset, wrapped hides shifted with every movement. Small gaps opened. Warm air escaped. Cold air rushed in. The body burned more energy to replace the lost heat, repeating the cycle all night. Animal hides insulated well, but they wrapped around the body instead of fitting it. They covered people, yet never truly sealed them from the wind. That limitation mattered. Archaeologists have uncovered Neanderthal fireplaces, stone tools, butchered bones, and carefully prepared hides. But one technology is strikingly absent. There is no convincing evidence they regularly produced fitted, stitched clothing capable of trapping warm air close to the body. It sounds insignificant. It wasn't. That missing seam may have separated enduring winter from surviving it. To understand why, we must travel beyond Ice Age Europe to a place that should have been impossible for humans to inhabit, yet people lived there. If you had to choose the last place humans could survive during the Ice Age, you'd probably choose the Arctic. Treeless, frozen, temperatures approaching -50 degrees Celsius. Yet archaeology tells a different story. Around 32,000 years ago, people established a permanent settlement along Siberia's Yana River well above the Arctic Circle. They didn't simply pass through, they stayed. Excavations uncovered thousands of stone tools, ivory artifacts, rhinoceros horn weapon shafts, and clear evidence of repeated occupation and manufacturing. This wasn't a temporary camp. It was a thriving community where families lived, children grew up, and tools were continually made and repaired. Life remained brutally difficult. Forests were scarce. Fuel was limited. Natural shelter was rare. Nearly everything required for survival had to be built, carried, or maintained. Yet the settlement endured. Yana challenges one of our oldest assumptions. Extreme cold alone did not determine survival. If it had, this community could never have existed. That creates a striking contradiction. Britain was warmer, greener, and far more inviting than Arctic Siberia. Yet Arctic communities remained for generations while Britain was repeatedly settled, abandoned, and resettled. The harsher landscape supported permanent occupation. The milder one repeatedly failed. Clearly something more powerful than temperature-shaped human survival. To find it, we travel south to another remarkable discovery. A home built from the bones of mammoths. By now the pattern was clear. Humans reached Britain. They developed advanced weapons. Neanderthals mastered the cold. Communities thrived above the Arctic Circle. Yet one challenge remained: the night. Around 25,000 years ago, during one of the coldest periods of the Ice Age, people near present-day Kostenki in western Russia faced a world with few trees and almost no natural shelter. So they built their own. Archaeologists uncovered circular dwellings constructed from mammoth bones. Jawbones formed the base, long bones became walls, and skulls were built into the structure. Dozens of mammoths contributed to a single shelter. These weren't random piles of bones. They were carefully engineered homes designed to withstand the wind. Inside, fires burned behind protective walls. But the fire pits revealed another innovation. Instead of charcoal, archaeologists found burned mammoth bones. With wood in short supply, people turned the same animals that provided shelter into fuel. Nothing was wasted. Kostenki demonstrates humanity's greatest strength. When forests disappeared, people adapted. When wood became scarce, they found another energy source. Every obstacle inspired another solution. By now, humans had solved remarkable problems. They engineered hunting weapons, adapted to extreme cold, built Arctic settlements, constructed homes from mammoth bones. Yet one mystery remained. Why did Britain continue to fail? Why was a milder land repeatedly abandoned while far harsher regions stayed occupied? The answer isn't found in what archaeologists discovered. It's found in what they didn't. For thousands of years, Britain fell silent. No villages, no camps, almost nothing at all. That silence may be the most important clue of the entire Ice Age. By now, the evidence seemed contradictory. Humans mastered hunting, adapted to brutal climates, survived in the Arctic, built shelters from mammoth bones. Yet Britain kept defeating them. Not because it was colder, not because it lacked food. Something in its environment repeatedly forced people to leave. Archaeologists see this mystery in the gaps. For thousands of years, Britain's archaeological record simply disappears. No camps, no hearths, no workshops. Then people return, only to disappear again. For nearly 1 million years, Britain followed the same cycle. Settled, abandoned, reoccupied, abandoned. Sometimes the greatest archaeological evidence is absence itself. Then around 14,700 years ago, the climate warmed. Glaciers retreated, forests slowly returned, and herds expanded across the landscape. Britain, still connected to mainland Europe by land, became habitable once again. One site stands above the rest. Gough's cave, sheltered within a limestone gorge. It offered protection from wind and a reliable place to keep a fire. Excavations revealed repeated occupation, hunting, and food processing. Then came a disturbing discovery: human bones. Many carried the same cut marks found on butchered animals. Long bones had been broken for marrow. Several skulls had been carefully shaped into bowls. These were deliberate modifications, not accidents. Gough's cave reveals an uncomfortable truth. Even with shelter, even with fire, even during a warmer climate, survival could still fail. Our journey has already overturned several assumptions. Food wasn't always the greatest problem. Neither was extreme cold. Now Gough's cave challenges another. The right tools alone were never enough. Another force quietly decided who survived each night. Once we recognize it, Britain's greatest mystery finally makes sense. Why did Britain repeatedly fail while people survived in places far colder? For generations, the answer seemed obvious: temperature. But archaeology suggests the story was more complicated. At Yana, families lived above the Arctic Circle in winters approaching -50 degrees Celsius. Britain was considerably warmer. Yet Britain kept emptying. Temperature alone cannot fully explain the difference. One factor may have been something far less dramatic: water. Rain, drizzle, wet snow, fog, moisture carried inland by relentless Atlantic winds. Britain's climate left hides damp, fuel-wet, and clothing slow to dry. That mattered because the human body survives by holding on to heat. Dry air removes heat gradually. Water removes it far faster. Once hides became soaked, they lost much of their insulating ability, forcing the body to burn far more energy simply to stay warm. Suddenly, food became more than nutrition. It became fuel for survival. Even a successful hunt might provide only enough energy to endure another cold, rain-soaked night. Storm after storm damp clothing may have quietly shifted the balance against long-term survival. It probably wasn't the only reason Britain was repeatedly abandoned. Changing climates, shifting landscapes, migrating prey, and other environmental pressures also shaped when people could remain and when they had to leave. But persistent cold, wet conditions offer one compelling explanation for why Britain often proved far more challenging than its temperatures alone would suggest. The Arctic's cold was predictable, and snow often remained dry. Britain combined moisture with wind, stripping body heat faster than people could easily replace it. The deadliest night wasn't always the coldest. It may have been the night the body finally ran out of energy. Humanity eventually found ways to reduce that relentless heat loss. Not with a bigger fire, not with a better spear, not with thicker hides, but with one small invention that changed human history forever. For nearly 1,000,000 years, humanity fought the same battle. Not against predators, not against glaciers, against the night. People became better hunters, mastered fire, crossed frozen plains, settled the Arctic, built shelters from mammoth bones. Yet one weakness remained. Animal hides wrapped around the body but couldn't trap warmth. Every movement let precious heat escape. Then between 40,000 and 50,000 years ago, a small invention changed everything: the eyed needle. Carved from bone or ivory. Its tiny hole allowed hides to be stitched into fitted clothing. Loose coverings became garments. Sleeves stayed closed, hoods moved with the head. Warm air remained trapped close to the body. The change seemed small. Its impact was enormous. People needed less energy to survive each night. Food lasted longer. Recovery replaced endurance. Regions that had defeated earlier populations gradually became permanent homes. Looking back, the pattern is unmistakable. Happisburgh shows humans reached northern Europe far earlier than once believed. Schöningen proves they became skilled hunters. Neanderthals reveal extraordinary adaptation to the cold. Yana demonstrates that people could thrive above the Arctic Circle. Kostenki shows they built homes from mammoth bones. Gough's cave reminds us that shelter and fire alone were never enough. Every discovery points to the same conclusion. The greatest enemy was never the mammoth, never the glacier, not even the cold itself. It was the long night, when the body struggled to hold onto its heat. Today we zip a jacket, button a sleeve, or pull up a blanket without thinking. Yet each simple action is the result of hundreds of thousands of years of adaptation, failure, and innovation. Perhaps humanity's greatest Ice Age breakthrough wasn't a weapon or a shelter. It was a tiny hole drilled through a piece of bone, a simple invention that finally kept the warmth in and kept humanity alive.